Bartenders pretty much universally hate making this drink. But the cool thing about home bartending is that you can do whatever you want. So today's drink is called a Ramos Gin Fizz. It's very popular in New Orleans. This drink is very labor intensive to make. It takes shaking for a lot longer than most cocktails. And also it looks really pretty. It looks really interesting from across the bar. And so there's a little bit of a snowball effect. Whenever one is ordered, many more tend to be ordered. I decided to make this drink because the Super Bowl is coming up. And while this might not make a great drink for a Super Bowl party, because the Super Bowl will be in New Orleans, it got me thinking about New Orleans drinks. So this week and next week will be some classic New Orleans drinks. I've already done the Sazerac if you look back at episode 2, I believe, but today we'll be doing a Ramos Gin Fizz and we'll do another one next week. When I was getting the ingredients out to put this one together, I at first didn't think there were that many ingredients in this drink. Start with a bottle of gin, and then you need lemon juice and lime juice, and simple syrup, and cream, and egg, and orange for garnish, and orange bitters, and orange blossom water, and soda. And so none of the ingredients are really all that complex. You may have all of these at home, maybe except for the orange blossom water, but I luckily had the orange blossom water at home because I recently made grenadine, and grenadine also calls for it. So a little 1-2 punch if you need to pick up a bottle of that. And also I'll call out this week and next week's recipe come pretty much directly from the Cure, I was gonna say cookbook, cocktail cookbook. And yeah, this is a famous New Orleans bar called Cure that does everything well. And they have a great spec for a Ramos Gin Fizz, so we'll be using that. The guy who came up with this drink in his bar had frequently up to 30 bartenders behind the bar that would pass the shaking tin from bartender to bartender, shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. They said it took 12 minutes to make the drink. With some advances in food science and a little bit better understanding, this drink can probably be made more realistically in about 3 minutes. Or 3 minutes of shaking rather, which is still a really long time. Most drinks are only shaken for 15, maybe 30 seconds. Shaking a drink for 3 minutes is pretty lengthy. We'll be doing part of it as a dry shake, and then we'll be combining everything and shaking again with ice, and it won't be for 12 minutes. But if we have done it right, you'll be able to see a cap of foam rising above the rim of the glass. So I've never made one of these at home. I hope it goes well. Let's see. Something that I think is unique and important about this Cure recipe is that there are 3 separate shaking steps. The first, we'll just use orange blossom water, egg, really just egg white, and lemon and lime. This drink calls for lemon and lime and orange blossom and orange bitters, so there's a lot of citrus qualities going on. We're not actually going to use any orange juice, but Neil Bodenheimer is the author and founder of Cure, author of the book and founder of Cure. And he sets up these 3 separate steps because of what's going on a food chemistry level. And so we'll start with just by shaking those first 4 ingredients, and then we'll add a little more, and then we'll shake again, and then we'll add a little more. And the idea is that as we're adding ingredients, we're only putting them in the shaker when we need them and not shaking everything for the whole time, especially when ingredients like the sugar or the spirit may actually be counterintuitive to what we're trying to do at that specific step in order to achieve the texture and the appearance that we're looking for in a good Ramos Gin Fizz. So we will get started with the egg white. I want to do that first, mainly to make sure that I don't get any yolk or shell in the shaker. So I'm going to separate it here. Didn't get a clean break there, but it should still work. Perfect. Then we'll use a 1/2 ounce of this lime juice, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, and a couple drops of this orange blossom water. This bottle is still pretty full, so I can actually just stick a straw directly in there and pull out a few drops. Probably a dropper bottle would be a better move, but I don't have one right now. I'm just going to do 3. I would rather not overdo it with orange blossom water. It's a pretty potent aroma. You can smell it even just as you open it up. And if you overdo it with the orange blossom water, you're going to end up with a drink that smells like soap. We don't want that. So we'll shake with just those 3. This is called a dry shake because there's no ice. And remember, when you're shaking with egg, it's going to want to expand a bit. So be careful to really hold the 2 sides of the shaker together. We're going to do this for 30 seconds. Okay, that was 30 seconds. I have a little timer on this camera down here, so it's keeping me honest. I gotta say, shaking for 30 seconds was already more difficult than I thought it would be. And we still have at least 2 more minutes of shaking to go, so this is gonna be exciting. Okay, so just to keep everything straight, we've already used the lemon juice and the lime juice, and the orange blossom water. I'm gonna kind of put those aside so we can visually understand what step we're at. We're gonna add the gin and the simple syrup, and we're gonna shake again. His recipe actually doesn't call for orange bitters. I'm gonna use just a single dash because I've seen that in a few recipes also, and I wanna see what it does. And because we're adding the gin at this step, adding something with alcohol makes sense to me. So that was 2 ounces of gin. This is a full ounce of simple syrup. And then at this step, it's actually no longer a dry shake. So I'm gonna go get some ice and we'll keep shaking. And this is actually what's called a whip shake. I've only added 3 ice cubes to this shaking tin. And the idea is to shake hard and fast and actually totally dissolve your ice cubes. So let's see how successful that is after another minute of shaking. We should be able to, over time, hear the ice kind of go away. We'll see. 1 minute. I can't totally hear the ice gone, but it's gone from a very obvious ice sound to tiny little pebble clicks. I think it's almost gone. I didn't know if this would happen or not. I think we did it. I don't hear the ice at all. Excited. And then for the cream, he actually calls for 1.5 ounces of cream. I think I should have that much here. Just barely. Wow. And shake for another minute more. Ooh, this is exhausting. Hopefully worth it. Okay, that was almost a total of 3 minutes of shaking. I thought the bartenders that I've seen make this before were exaggerating, but that took a lot of effort. My hands are very cold. Got a very cold glass here. I'm gonna double strain this one as he calls for. First, we're gonna put some soda in the bottom. It's about 2 ounces of soda in the bottom. We might need a little bit more to float on the top. Normally I would use a strainer on top, but I'm going to use this double strainer instead, and there's no ice in here anymore, so I think we should be okay. He says to add it in stages. There might actually be more here than I can fit in this glass, but we'll give it a little bit of time to let that cap kind of develop. I would say overall looking pretty promising. The top looks like a marshmallow, even like a melted kind of marshmallow creamy fluff. I think we did okay. Okay, I'm kind of remembering tips as I go here that I read about or heard other bartenders tell me, and I've seen people kind of punch a hole in the center so they can keep pouring. A lot of fluid dynamics at play here. Okay, got a little bit running over the edge here, but I think overall we're getting that lift. We're getting that raise off the top that I was looking for. Let me make sure we can see it here. 1 second. I had to adjust that camera angle to make sure we're getting the full ocular ideal perspective here. But look at that. Pretty fun. I still have more drink in my shaker, which means I probably didn't select the right glass size for this drink, but it'll be okay. I'll drink a little bit and then I'll top it up and then we'll keep talking. Oh man, that's amazing. It's like a creamsicle. Okay, I'm told that to truly enjoy the Ramos Gin Fizz, you're supposed to get in there and take a sip. I apologize in advance if this is going to be a little gross, but I've got to do it. All in all, I would say that worked out better than I had hoped. It's so creamy and also very bright. It doesn't overwhelm with sweetness or richness because there's that cut of the lemon and the lime and even the orange blossom. I don't think there's too much orange blossom, so I think those 3 drops that we did were perfect. You could probably even go more if you really like that flavor. I was just wanting to make sure that it wasn't going to overpower. Maybe go out and have this at a bar one time if you're in New Orleans and you're at a spot that seems a little bit slow and you get chatting with the bartender and they're open to making one. I think it's totally reasonable. Or if you see it on the menu somewhere, just order it. I didn't know if I'd be able to achieve what we just did today, but it worked out and I totally recommend trying to do the same. Also stoked that the whip shape worked. I was kind of amazed how much ice sound I could hear at the beginning versus it just gradually disappearing over time. It's cool when it works out like you hoped it would. That's all for the Ramos Gin Fizz. Thanks for joining, and tune in next week for another New Orleans themed cocktail. The next one might be a little bit more batch friendly if you're having some kind of a New Orleans themed watch party for the Super Bowl, or if you're feeling bold and want to give this one a shot for a party, be my guest, or rather invite me as your guest. At the end of the day, drinks are for fun, and my goal with this channel is to teach people enough so they can share that fun with the people they love. Come and be amazed at what you can do. Cheers.